Thank you. He knows how good I am, so that's just pointing that out. We do want to thank all of our sponsors, but during this break, we want to take a moment just to say thank you to Stone Table. Is there somebody from Stone Table around, or persons can wave at us? I can't actually see. Is anyone waving? I don't see anyone. Okay. Well then, just skip them. I'm just kidding. No, we do. As you have an opportunity, learn about Stone Table and express your gratitude for them helping us out financially to make this happen tonight. Well, Joe was amazing. I don't know about you, but I found it challenging and exciting at the same time. She kind of reminded me of my grandma and how she thought about hospitality, and it was great to kind of think of them together. We now have an opportunity to bring this conversation into our community and right into this room. And it's right off the pages of the national conversation. Our next speaker, Ariana, is a senior at Noblesville High School, exploring her options for university next year. Don't know yet. I'm not going to make her commit because it's a long time till May. She and her family are immigrants from Venezuela and are currently seeking asylum. So, newsworthy? I think so. While she hasn't been here a very long time, Hispanic students in her community have turned to Ariana as the voice of their experience, and local schools have turned to her as a resource for training teachers and school staff. When I asked my good friend and local business leader, Emily Wasonga, for a voice to share the immigrant experience, she didn't hesitate. She said, "We have to get Ariana." And I'm so excited that we did. We get to hear from an insider what it's like to be hosted in our community and to share her story. We're delighted to have her family with us. Bienvenidos, Carlos, Natangela, Luis, and Maria. We're glad you're here too. Please join me in welcome Ariana Fuenmaya.
Thank you, Scott. My name is Ariana and I am an immigrant. Lately, I've tried not to mention this when introducing myself because I don't want it to define me. But it really does define you, doesn't it? When was the last time someone told you they were an immigrant? First off, it means that they're from someplace else. And indeed, the place where you grow up, where you're raised, where you learn to walk, to speak, and to be yourself, I like to believe it stays with you forever. And indeed, every place is different. I know mine is. I grew up in Venezuela, a country in the north of South America and bordered by the Caribbean Sea. Having lived in a very hot, humid weather my entire life, I had never seen snow with my own eyes before until I moved to Indiana. The first time that my siblings and I went outside on a snow day, I thought it would be just like what you see in the movies. You know, we would run around and lay in the snow and make angels and throw snowballs at each other. And I thought we would have fun, but that was not what happened. Not just because I like to think about was how cold it was, but also because we were just amazed by the snow. There were a couple times where my brother would put on his coat and then go outside and with a plastic cup, grab some snow and then bring it back inside. And he would place it on the table and my sister and I would go to him and we would just contemplate the snow like a group of cavemen who had just discovered fire. And so when I'm chatting with my friends who are still in Venezuela, they usually ask me what snow looks like and what it feels like. And I like to say it's like pixie dust, except that instead of flying, you just don't feel your hand anymore. I've also told my friends about how hard it was for my family to get used to the winter. But they're a little skeptical. They say that they'd rather be cold than suffocate in the hot weather. And when I hear that, it makes me think of how you don't know certain things until you experience them yourself. When I moved to the US, what I found was very different from my expectations. I never thought my school would be so big that I would get lost going to my classes the first week. I never thought I would struggle to make new friends. And I never thought I would struggle to learn a new language. And most importantly, I never thought I would be denied my right to go to school. Not just once, but 3 times. And it happened when I first arrived in the country. My family and I were in Florida, and my brother and my sister had started attending school right away, and I was the only one who needed yet to be enrolled. After the second time that my parents tried to enroll me in a public school, we ended up in the office of the supervisor of student records of the county, and we tried to explain that yes, we entered the country with a tourist visa, but we were about to file for asylum. And I remember the man looking at me in the eye and saying, if you want to attend an American school, you have to go back to your country and pay whatever money you have to pay for a student visa. And when you come back, I'll enroll you. And I don't think I knew what discrimination was until that day. And so that forced us to move to Indiana, where I became a sophomore at Noblesville High School. And it's been 2 years. I am now a senior. And my experience as an immigrant has brought me here today to tell you what I've learned from moving to a new country. And the first thing that I want you to know is that I took so many things for granted. From the time that my parents told me that we were leaving the country to the day before our flight, I was so focused on what I was leaving for that I remained completely unaware of what I was leaving behind. My family, my friends, and my own language, I had no idea how much these things mattered in my life and how much they influenced my daily routine. And I'm sure that you know there's numerous people just like me in your communities and that there's more arriving constantly, but how are we welcoming them? Well, one way that I know is that we're offering different kinds of help. Since we arrived, my family has been attending this food pantry at Grace Care Center in Carmel, and there's many other places just like it around the county. Today, after 2 years, the Grace Care Center not only continues to have a food pantry, but it has ESL classes, and it has partnered with different organizations to offer legal assistance and different kinds of help and services that people in our community need. Recently, I became a volunteer there myself, and there isn't one day where I don't see dozens of immigrants. And what I'm trying to say with this is that if you want to help immigrants just by doing things like volunteering and donating at your local church, that really makes a big difference. But unfortunately, immigrants don't always have positive experiences. My mom came home from work one day to tell me that she was speaking with another worker when a customer told her, your Spanish is annoying me. Can you stop speaking because I'm trying to eat? And it is not uncommon to hear comments like that. When you hear people speaking another language and you don't understand what they're saying, you may feel bothered because you're used to always understanding everything. But should you react by telling people not to speak English, not to speak their language, or to speak English or not speak at all? No. Here's why. Because the only reason they're speaking that language is that English is not their native language. Imagine for a moment that you're having a conversation with somebody and they ask you a question and you know exactly what you want to say, but you just can't say it because you don't know what words to use, you don't know how to arrange them, and you don't even know how to pronounce them. That's what it's like to not be a fluent English speaker. Maybe you're annoyed because you don't understand, but do you know what it's like to not be understood? To be trapped behind that language barrier and be unable to express your thoughts? To lose confidence to your accent and the time it takes you to say what you want to say? Even after 2 years of speaking English daily, my English is still not perfect. I can make out the words that people are saying to me when they're whispering, or when there's other people talking in the background, when I'm told to read an article or a chapter from a book. there's at least 10 words that are unknown to me. And presentations at school are a nightmare, conversations are a challenge. But eventually, you learn to live with it and you accept it and you learn that it's okay to make mistakes and to not always know everything. Your tolerance and empathy is what immigrants need to integrate in their communities. In one occasion as a volunteer, my job was to help people. My job was to give away some backpacks for elementary school, but there was this woman whose son was in high school, and so we didn't have backpacks for her. But then I told her that if she wrote down her information, we could figure something out. And as she was speaking, I saw her struggling, and then our volunteer asked me, why is she looking at her phone? And I said, because she's making sure she's spelling her name right. I mean, can you imagine like having to learn how to use a completely different writing system from the one you've used your whole life? And the woman laughed and looked at me, and she was happy because she felt like she was not alone.
The opportunities for us to express hospitality in very specific ways. And we thank you for sharing that with us and continuing to extend that hospitality to others as they come into our community. If I can scroll correctly. There we go. One of our collective experiences of hospitality is in the area of immigration. It's something we can, without going too far and stretching too wide, we can find ways to connect. On the other hand, the most common method of collectively coming together and shaping our culture is through education. We are honored today to have the innovating and impactful leader, one of the innovative and impactful leaders of our community, joining us tonight. A servant leader and community organizer are the roles that Freedom cherishes and has built her career around. With more than 22 years of in the philanthropic sector, Freedom is adept at identifying core issues, leveraging strengths, tackling challenges, and rallying support for high-impact community causes. Recently, Freedom assumed the role of Special Projects Officer, where she's focused primarily on school counseling, mental health, experiential learning, maybe experiential too, I don't know, all of the things. Equity and inclusion. In 2018, she was recognized as Hamilton Southeastern School's One for All Equity Champion. Please welcome Freedom and thank Ariana.
All right, can you hear me okay? Thanks so much for having me, especially to talk about my favorite topic, education. It's really quite an incredible, complicated time to be in education right now. So we're gonna get up there. I believe to learn, we must be comfortable, but to grow, we must be uncomfortable. And that's a pretty tall order for schools today. If you imagine needing to create these warm, safe learning environments for children where every one of our students is seen and heard and matters, and then at times push them right out of that comfort zone so that they can grow. Actually, schools in America are a pretty safe things to talk about. It's pretty comfortable because we all share a common lens. We have some common stories and experiences we can relate to. Actually, right now, why don't you think about your school experience? Think about your elementary school for me, or your high school. What did it look like? What were some of the faces that you remember? What did you study? What was your favorite class? I think we can all create a picture of that. Now tell me why it looked like that. Why did you go to school for 12 years? Why were you grouped by ages? Why did you sit in rows? Why did you study math? And I don't think many of us can answer that. We really can have a picture of the what, but not the why. What's the structure and design of education behind it? So I'm going to give you a quick crash course. For most of human history, people did exactly what you're doing now. They sat with some wise elders, with interested disciples, and they passed knowledge down. But it wasn't just the greats, not just Plato and Socrates. That's how all knowledge was handed down. And it didn't matter if you were a midwife or an attorney or a clergyman. That's how we grew. But about 130 years ago, things changed, and we entered the Industrial Revolution. And we looked around and we realized America needed a lot of workers with a small, predictable range of skills. So we looked around the globe. We found some friends in Prussia who were also looking for high volume of low-skilled workers, but for their military. And we decided, actually 10 men got together, 10 men, and decided that we would standardize all of education in America. In fact, they said every subject which is taught should be taught in the same way, to the same extent, to every pupil. And we created a fixed process where 25 kids would sit in a class, 7 courses a day for 180 days for 12 years. We created schools that resembled the very factory lines they were designed to feed. And it worked for a very long time, but what I'll tell you is they really were there to sort children. High ability, average ability, low ability, and not necessarily to teach them. This curriculum that they developed, the standard curriculum that the Committee of 10 developed, is largely unchanged still today. And what I would tell you is that 100 years is a long time to go without an upgrade, because Apple can't go a month without an upgrade. And honestly, what would you trust in your life right now to 100-year-old knowledge? I'm guessing not advice from your cardiologist or aviation safety standards. So I think we need a reboot. I think K-12 needs a reboot. They say that 65% of the jobs of tomorrow don't exist today, 65%. So I think we have to talk again about what's worth learning. See, this is an upgrade. What's worth learning? And that's a little scary. Actually, that's a little more than uncomfortable, because when we talk about what's worth learning, we're implying that some things aren't worth learning. But think about this. Our students today, I'm so glad you're here. They're no longer hunters and gatherers of content. They always have content at their fingertips. So we need to stop thinking about drilling content and start thinking about how they apply that content. We have to be less concerned about regurgitating facts and more concerned about critical thinking. Yeah. And if you're not with me yet, let me tell you one more thing about industrial age education. They subscribe to one very important and very flawed fact, and that is that smart is fast and fast is smart. And we actually know that's not how learning works. Speed and ability do not always go hand in hand. In fact, the research tells us now that 90% of students can master any topic, if given their own time. So we have to start asking ourselves, do we care more that they learn on our schedule, or do we care more that they learn? Because what do grades really tell us, right? What does a C mean? A C means, at this one point in time, this student has mastered about 70% of that topic. And it also means that they have about a 30% learning gap. And remember, that worked in industrial age America because we really only wanted to sort you. And those assessments, those grades, and those standardized tests, they actually were the destination. And now I'm asking you all to shift and just make them the mile markers. Just where we are, an indicator of where we are on the road to learning and mastery. There's a great TED Talk out there about just this, actually, and it says, what if we applied modern education practices to another industry, like the construction industry? So you hire a contractor, you're going to put up a massive parking structure in the middle of downtown. 3 weeks into the process, right